Welcome, you no-talent ass clowns, to TP for your earholes. My name is Charlene Schmidt, and with me is...
Patrick Schmidt. That's me. We have the same last name, and we're on the same podcast.
That's so weird. How did that happen?
What a coincidence.
Such a coincidence. Yeah. Nepotism.
We're okay with it.
I mean, it works for us, honestly.
Yes.
So, anyway, today we are not here to talk about us. We're here to talk about another Mike Judge production, besides Beavis and Butt-head, which is the movie Office Space, and we're going to make some parallels between these two things that we have observed over the years and made note of very recently, and then we're going to share them all with you right here.
It's one of our favorite movies of all time, and I don't think it's a coincidence that both Beavis and Butt-head and Office Space are Mike Judge products. So I'm excited to talk about the things that we've noticed and to see if our audience has noticed them too, and to see if our audience has noticed parallels that maybe we haven't.
That's right. And if you think of things after you've heard our stuff that you want to add to the conversation, you can do that where, Patrick?
We are on a whole bunch of socials. We're on Blue Sky, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We also have tpforyourearholes.com, where you have our entire back catalog of episodes to be able to listen to. You can also follow us on YouTube. And then, of course, you can get this podcast wherever you get your podcast.
That's right. We're everywhere.
We really do try to be pretty ubiquitous. And hopefully, if you've found us, you're listening to this episode, you've found us, maybe you can follow us on those platforms that you use as well. And we would love to hear from you.
Yes, and share with your friends who also love Beavis and Butt-head, or if they just love the movie Office Space, maybe they'll enjoy this.
Yeah, we really are taking a Mike Judge detour here. But it's earned. Let's be honest, it's earned.
Absolutely. These are both projects that have Mike Judge's fingerprints all over it, very distinctly him. And I think we're going to tap into a lot of that as we get into it. So let's get into it, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay. So let's maybe talk a little bit just about Mike Judge himself. Where was he at when Office Space was being made and when it came out, as opposed to Beavis and Butt-head and that sort of a thing? Just in case folks don't really know much about the guy behind this stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that Office Space is really Mike Judge's biggest project, like independent project, post Beavis and Butt-head. So this movie comes out in 1999 and Beavis and Butt-head ends in 1997, at least the original run. And so by this point, Mike Judge is an established name. He's in his mid to late 30s. He's 36, 37 when Office Space is being made and it comes out. But before that, he really kind of did stumble into entertainment, you know?
He really did. This was not his original career goal by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
He was actually an engineer. He had jobs in mechanical engineering. He has a physics degree from UC San Diego, and before that he lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We know that he lived in Texas for a little while, and when he was in grad school to become a community college math teacher...
Woohoo!
Yeah, shout out to community colleges. You're very important. That is when Mike Judge got into animation. He left grad school because that's when Beavis and Butt-head broke on the scene.
Yeah, and from there he really built his career on this sort of very intelligent social commentary comedy. And again, we said it before on this podcast. We'll say it again, and we're going to say it right now. If you think Beavis and Butt-head is stupid, you are watching it wrong.
Yes.
And you think about things like Office Space and then all the Mike Judge projects that have followed, including King of the Hill, Idiocracy, Silicon Valley, which we still haven't watched yet, Confession Time.
We're gonna have to do that.
That's on our list of things that we want to watch. But they're all kind of this mirror to society, and it's super intelligent, and I have a lot of respect for his approach to storytelling.
He makes it look really easy, and especially the stupid part where he finds the amusing way to present some really good commentary without like smashing you over the head and saying, this is a message. And it's not preachy. It just is. It is the world itself. And that is solid storytelling. So let's talk a little bit about Office Space, the movie. just for folks, if you've not seen this movie, and if you haven't, what are you doing? Go watch this movie. But if you need a refresher, I do have a short synopsis from Rotten Tomatoes.
Please.
Corporate drone Peter Gibbons hates his soul-killing job at software company Initech. While undergoing hypnotherapy, Peter is left in a blissful state when his therapist dies in the middle of their session. He refuses to work overtime, plays games at his desk, and unintentionally charms 2 consultants into putting him on the management fast track. When Peter's friends learn they're about to be downsized, they hatch a revenge plot against the company inspired by Superman 3. I guess that takes care of the big plot points, but there's so much good stuff in between that doesn't even touch on.
Mm-hmm. And I know some of you right now are saying, Patrick, tell me something I don't know. Shar, tell me something I don't know.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I'm going to try to pull out the most random fact Easter egg in this entire movie right now. So for those of you who are thinking, oh, I know all this stuff, did you know this?
Don't turn us off yet.
I caught Shar by surprise with this little fact when we rewatched last night this movie. She had never caught this, and I had clocked this 20 years ago.
This happens sometimes, so what is this fact?
There's a scene in the movie where Drew tells Peter, oh yeah, Lumberg fucked her.
Referring to Peter's girlfriend, yeah.
They're at the barbecue, and then there's this very short line of dialogue before Peter's mind just runs away from him, which is, oh, who else? Rennie, and he starts listing off all these other names, but Rennie's the only name we hear. Well, who's Rennie?
Who's Rennie?
David Rennie is the film editor for Office Space.
Yes, and I did not know.
So there is this little thing of, this little Easter egg of the film editor being able to have sex with Jennifer Aniston.
Hey, you know what? I think he earned that privilege to get that reference in. Why not?
Maybe. Let's take it for what it's worth. And there's that little Easter egg. If you've missed that in previous viewings, there you go. You have learned something new. And if you did know that, you are really clocking things very well.
Yeah, you're a Deep Cut fan, and I was personally blown away by this. Never thought about it, never put it together. And if you didn't know either, it's okay, you're not alone.
And this leads us into our bigger topic for today, which is the parallels that we see between the movie Office Space and the TV show Beavis and Butt-head. And we have several different parallels that we've identified. It's not an exhaustive list. It's some things that we found interesting. We're going to start fairly shallow.
And then we're going to go deeper.
So it's going to get progressively more intellectual as we move on.
We got to warm up to that.
Yeah, we're going to warm up to the bigger conversations, but we're going to start kind of light and we're going to get kind of deep. So just be ready for that transition.
So let's start off with these really superficial things, 2 of which are fire and breaking stuff.
Hell yes. Hell yes. Right?
Hey, we get this in Beavis and Butt-head all the time, but we also get it in Office Space. Milton sets the building on fire. It's a big fire. It destroys the whole thing, burns it down. And then there's the breaking stuff. Most people, even if you have not seen this movie, know about the printer scene where they're just beating the shit out of it in that park.
Yes. And that is, I'm going to argue, maybe the most famous scene in the movie.
It very well might be. Yeah.
And this is something that we see in Beavis and Butt-head too. They love their fire. They love their demolition.
Yep.
And another thing Beavis and Butt-head love, and that the characters in Office Space love, calling each other names.
Right? I mean, if you didn't catch it at the top of this show, there's an Office Space reference, not a Beavis and Butt-head reference that we all called y'all.
Yeah, the ass clowns, the cock goblins, all kinds of names that pop up in the movie are very reminiscent of, and even though they're unique and specific to the movie, they're reminiscent of the kinds of nicknames you would hear in Beavis and Butt-head.
Very much so. Yeah, I love that distinction too, where Beavis and Butt-head aren't going to be calling each other cock goblins, but it's kind of the same umbrella as like a butt munch.
Yes, it's body part meets weird, obscure noun.
Does Mike Judge just have some random name-calling generator that he built? And that puts together some of these things? I do wonder.
I've seen there is a grid out there of, can you put these things together? This very random insult and this very random noun from Beavis and Butt-head. Can you put them together and have them work? Some of them do, some of them don't.
Okay.
That's part of the fun, but there is definitely a pattern to the name calling that you can see that's very paralleled here.
Yeah, for sure. So another thing that I think is very notable and memorable about Office Space especially, but also Beavis and Butthead, is you've got these one-note quirky characters. They only do one thing. They only have one job, but they do it really well. Kind of like the just a moment lady, Brian, the annoyingly enthusiastic waiter at Tchotchkes. You know, these guys don't have tons to do, but once you've seen this movie, you remember them.
Yeah, and I think you see the same thing in Beavis and Butthead, where you have characters who only do one thing. You only see them in one way. We sort of talked about that on our Hidden World of Beavis and Butthead episode, where, you know, when you see Buzzcut on screen, you know what's going to happen. You know, when you see the Just a Moment lady on screen, you know what's going to happen. And there's a certain appeal to that that's really comforting.
It really is. That's strange when you think about it, but it's true. I don't know. It's something about that world feeling like you know it and you understand it.
Yeah. And there is, by the way, one of those characters, the case of the Mondays woman in Office Space. Her name's Jennifer Emerson. Jennifer Jane Emerson is how she's listed.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking for talent parallels between the movie and the show. She's one of only 2 talent parallels that we found beyond Mike Judge, right?
Yes.
Beyond Mike Judge, because the case of the Mondays lady actually is a voice actor on 5 episodes of the original run of Beavis and Butt-head.
This was such a fun rabbit hole to go down last night.
Yeah.
Had no idea this was going to happen. And then it kind of became this thing.
Yeah, it was very cool. And if you really want a deep cut, the case of the Mondays woman and the Great Cornholio episode, she's in both of them, right? Her presence is in both of these amazing historic pieces of media.
That's so freaking cool. I mean, if that were my career, I would call it a day. That's it. I have peaked. I can't do any better. And the thing is we don't know specifically anything that she did on Beavis and Butt-head. She's just listed as an additional voice.
Right.
But she was there.
She was. And I bet you if you listen really, really close, you can find her. We haven't done that yet, but I bet she can.
I think we need to put that on our to-do list and see if we can figure it out.
And I also open invitation for her to be on the show.
Totally. If anybody has a connection, yo, let's talk.
Yeah. And then the other connection that we found was David Herman, who plays Michael Bolton in Office Space. He actually did the voices for 4 episodes of the 2011 reboot, and actually he had a lot of roles in that season that I didn't realize. And he also had some voices, multiple voices in Beavis and Butt-head to the universe. So I think that's pretty cool that he has been a part of these Mike Judge projects now for more than 20 years. And that's cool.
That's very cool. Yeah. And I also think that might be an indication of when you do good work and somebody wants to keep you around, they keep giving you work, no matter how big or small, like, hey, could you do this one thing for me? It'll take 5 minutes. Okay, cool. And then off you go. And you're doing a voice for 3 seconds, doing a line or something on Beavis and Butt-head. Something like that.
Yeah, but it's cool to see these teams stick together. It's sort of like the Brat Pack of the 80s or Martin and Lewis. Like, you love to see teams that kind of stick together. And another one I think of is like the Broken Lizard folks who've done the Super Troopers movies. It's just cool to see those teams kind of stick together in a variety of projects.
Yeah, and this does happen quite a bit. I mean, the first thing that I thought of as you were listing off some people who have done this, it's Vince Gilligan. And a lot of the folks who came on board to make Breaking Bad are still with him and doing things and now working on Pluribus for Apple TV.
Yes.
So that's really cool.
Another really good one. Yeah.
But back to Beavis and Butt-head and Office Space, let's do something about, how about relatability?
Okay.
It occurred to me as we were watching last night that Lawrence, the character played by Diedrich Bader, he's kind of like a lovable loser type, you know? He's not a super attractive dude. He's not a bad guy, but he's probably not the lady's first choice and doesn't get out he doesn't go out on a whole lot of dates. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
And so his big dream is he would do 2 chicks at the same time if he were a millionaire. I think that's a dream Beavis and Butthead would really understand.
Yes. Yes.
They would definitely talk at length about that. And then it also occurred to me that even with Peter, our main character, he has similar motivations to Beavis and Butthead. Honestly, when you break it down, he wants money and chicks. Now, does that break down to all men? Maybe. At least, money and relationships, maybe. But, I mean, yeah. You see what I'm saying here?
Men we're simple creatures. We really are. But there is a certain level of aspiration that is similar in these 2 pieces of media, which I think is very much a Mike. I'm going to coin a term here. I think a Mike Judgian, trope's the wrong word, but a consistent thing that shows up in the work that he does.
Maybe a theme.
Theme. Ooh, that's a really good word. Theme.
Yeah. Honestly, I think if Beavis and Butthead were watching Office Space, they would be rooting for Peter. Like, oh my God, heck yeah, he's going to score and he's going to have money. Hell yeah.
Yeah, and he's not going to work. Oh, wow. Cool.
I mean, that is living the dream. Am I right?
Right. I would pay good money to watch Beavis and Butt-head, Misty 3K, Office Space.
That is the commentary track I didn't realize we needed, but now I want it so bad.
Oh my gosh. Let's, Mike Judge, how much money do you want? We will give it to you or we will raise it for you.
It will find a way.
Please take our money.
We're not rich, but we are motivated.
And I do have another quick parallel that I noticed, which is in both Beavis and Butt-head and Office Space, you have white people appreciating hip hop.
We sure do.
Between Michael Bolton and Beavis, there's a lot of appreciation for that kind of music, that kind of approach to life, that kind of culture, and I think that that's really interesting and really cool. And it was just something I picked up on.
And it's kind of hilarious because they're just the biggest dorks.
Yes.
The biggest, whitest dorks to be appreciating this kind of music, and yet here we are. And I do love that too so much.
Yeah, there's definitely something similar between Beavis saying, yeah, I was at the Compton swap meet with Snoop, and Michael Bolton saying, what's up, G? Yeah. There's a connection there.
Most def. So one really simple one that we haven't even gotten to yet that I think I just need to really throw out and get out of the way is that Office Space and Beavis and Butt-head both originated from shorts.
Oh,
Duh.
Yes. This is a big one.
Yeah. We got Frog Baseball and then the Milton short, which had basically the Milton character along with Gary Cole's character Lumbergh establishing the Office Space world. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. Go watch it. It's fun.
Yeah, and these 2 shorts were made about the same time, about the time that Mike Judge was dropping out of grad school to pursue this as a career. So I think it makes sense when you think about that these shorts were made about the same time, that there's going to be parallels because he's in that headspace.
We were talking last night, just kind of as an aside here, that Office Space would be an amazing animated piece.
Yes.
In some fashion. Whereas Beavis and Butt-head in live action has been talked about many times as a possibility and never been done, and I think for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is an alternate universe, a la Beavis and Butt-head Do the Universe, where Office Space is the cartoon that was on MTV.
I could so see that happening on Liquid Television or something like that, where instead of Beavis and Butt-head, it was Office Space that took off, and it became the workplace sitcom animated style, though, that became as popular as, say, a show like The Office. But it's Office Space. Definitely could have happened.
Could have happened, and I don't know if it would have been on MTV. And I think that's another really interesting possibility, too.
Right.
And maybe if we have Office Space, the cartoon show, we don't have The Office live action.
Probably not, because then it's already been done.
It's already been done on TV.
And it's already been done well, so...
Yeah.
It would just be some cheap knockoff that would last a season. And then... Now, no disrespect to the British Office. I'm talking about the American Office.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of The Office and The Office and The Office Space and the offices of Beavis and Butthead, there's a consistent theme between the movie and the TV show where we see the bumbling of middle management.
Oh, man, do we ever.
This was a principle that I had known, and as we were building the show, I introduced you to, which is the Peter principle, which is that people are promoted to the level of their incompetence.
Yes.
And so you see somebody like the Burger World manager who clearly is not very good at being the manager, but probably was pretty good as a fry cook and was probably pretty good running the register. Similarly with Lumbergh, Lumbergh clearly is not a good motivator, clearly not a good boss.
No.
People really don't like him, and he doesn't get the most out of employees, but he was probably a pretty good employee himself, which is why he got promoted to the level of his incompetence.
It makes so much sense when you spell it out, but I had never heard this term before. And is it any wonder that our main character in Office Space is named Peter?
There you go.
The way you illustrated this to me was through the show The Office with Michael Scott, where he was a great salesman, a manager, iffy at best.
And I think this is also probably comes from Mike Judge's corporate experience.
No doubt,
working
yeah.
these engineering jobs, working these physics jobs. I'm sure that he saw it all the time.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have to talk a whole lot more about that for sure. But before we do that, I've got one more thing, and that is how Highland, Texas, and the city where Office Space takes place, we don't even know where. It's basically any town USA, right?
Yes.
I mean, before we knew that Highland was in Texas, it could have been anywhere. It could have been any small town in the Midwest, the West, what have you. It just eventually became established that it was in Texas. And we'd have even the license plates in Office Space don't specify a state or anything. They just have the American flag on them. And I think that is so on purpose because it could be any city in the U.S. This is wherever you live right now. So the relatability factor is high.
Very high, and very high for both shows. And I think very high for a lot of other Mike Judge projects.
For sure.
Yeah. And it does help. It does help be able to put the audience right into that moment.
Yeah. And especially for Office Space, if you have had an office job, if you've worked in the corporate world, God, you know this world. You live it. You see yourself in it. You know the characters that are in it. You have experienced this, all of it. And while it makes you want to like vomit, at the same time, you also love it just because of how well it's done. Like, yep, you nailed it.
And we both had a few corporate jobs, and it definitely rings true.
Oh, I still get kind of like flashbacks from cubicles when I see them. It's not good.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So this does lead to, I think, our biggest point of the episode and our biggest kind of takeaway. And this is Beavis and Butthead and Office Space, but also a lot of other Mike Judge works, which is the big similarity, the big through line is just holding up this mirror to society.
Right. Showing us ourselves through an entertaining, hilarious story.
And I think that's part of why certainly Office Space really gained this cult following was because people felt it just like we felt it. People understood it in a way that really connected them to the characters, to the story. It became the fantasy that we all wanted to live out.
Oh, totally. Who doesn't want to be Peter living out this dream of never having to work a day in your life again?
And let's be honest, who doesn't want to be Beavis and Butthead? Because there's a certain level of innocence and purity to this idea that you are basically held unaccountable for the damage that you do. And that there's sort of this willful ignorance that those characters have that makes them, one, really fun to watch, but two, almost like, gosh, they're stupid, but they're in a really good place in life where it's like, boy, I wish I could be that irresponsible and continue to live my life.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
I mean, their life is without consequence, and that's because they're cartoons. Hence the warning at the beginning of the classic episodes, right? And ignorance really is bliss for these guys. It shows you what would happen if real people really were like this. And maybe to some extent, we actually have seen people in our lives who are sort of like this, that maybe are at least like degenerate, a little bit destructive, or just really freaking stupid. And you just wonder, how are they getting by in life? Well, life finds a way.
And it is the sort of anti-hero idea, right? Because no one is represented very well in either one of these, Beavis and Butt-head, Office Space. Find me somebody who is reaching self-actualization on Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah, no.
It's no one. It's no one. And I think that that also makes it very relatable. Like we if we are not these people ourselves, we know people like them.
For sure.
And I think there's a lot to be said for that kind of storytelling, where you have this instant gut connection to the characters, to the story. And I think this is ultimately what makes Mike Judge's work so lasting and so immediately connectable to an audience.
Yeah, and endearing. I mean, almost 30 years later, Office Space is still within the pulp culture complex. People know what it is. People reference it. It's out there. And it's not really, it hasn't completely faded away either.
And I think one of the big things about Office Space is it proved to, I think, the comedy community that Mike Judge really is a comedic voice, and he can tell different stories in different ways. And he can tell a diverse set of stories in different mediums, from animation to live action, from TV to movies. He really proved himself. And that's, in retrospect, I don't think that's at all a surprise. But maybe in the moment, it was like, okay, can this Beavis and Butt-head guy do anything else? And the answer is a resounding yes.
Yeah, but for sure. I unfortunately, especially for animation, I think a lot of folks who work in animation get kind of stuck into this trap of where that's what you do, that's where you belong, but that's the only thing you get to do. However, Mike Judge was able to break out of that mold. Good for him, because he can do a movie, he can do TV, he can do animation. Whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily matter the way the story is told. He's got a story to tell.
That's his voice, and I think that's really what we see in the 90s is him developing his voice. And I think later on we see him really refining and using that voice more specifically. And again, goes back to this idea, and we've mentioned it before, we love seeing growth. We love being able to not just see the polished thing at the end, but how we got there.
Yeah.
And that's part of why we love Beavis and Butt-head. And it's a big part of why we love this movie is it's further growth in his career and further development. And it's all the good things you hope to see from a creative person.
Yeah, it just furthers our love for Mike Judge and whatever he does next. And with that, friends, I think that concludes our list. Now it's your turn to let us know what you have seen that we missed. Go on Instagram, Blue Sky, Facebook, YouTube, comment. Go to tpforyourearholes.com. You can do the comment form there if you just want to go to us directly. We'd love to hear from you. And in the meantime, what's on tap for next week, Patrick?
We are sort of in this Mike Judge moment and this Mike Judge mentality, and we are trying to find ways to get people interested in Beavis and Butt-head and more broadly Mike Judge's work overall. So next week, we're going to give you a starter pack, a set of episodes from the reboot that you can suggest to a noob who maybe isn't as familiar with Beavis and Butt-head or Mike Judge. These are some episodes to get noobs interested in this series.
We're going to create a little marathon of 5 episodes that would hopefully convince somebody to say, okay, I want to go watch the rest.
And it's also, I think, an opportunity for those who have watched the original run but have not caught up to the new stuff. This is also going to be your starter pack.
Yeah. So hope you'll tune in next week to hear us talk all about that.